Hello patrons, it is I, Jessica Fletcher, McGruff the crime dog. Landis, I know we said we weren't doing much editing on this, but let's put those icons up on the screen. Anyway, this is our patron exclusive cadaver crime. And today we're going to be talking about the willed body donation program at UCLA, or the University of California, Los Angeles. Our first character you need to know is Ernest Nelson, who, starting in 1999, was a regular at the body refrigeration chamber at UCLA, and you couldn't miss him. He was described as a striking presence at 6'3" tall with a shaved head, and he would walk freely in and out of the body fridge twice a week, carrying a cooler, knives, and saws. I think you can already suspect what he was doing there with the cooler, knives, and saws. He would harvest organs from the bodies donated to UCLA Medical School, and then he would sell those organs to medical and pharmaceutical research companies. All Ernest Nelson had to do was pay Henry Reed, who was the program's director, when he made a sale. And over 6 years, after slicing up about 800 corpses, Nelson had earned approximately $1 million. What could go wrong? Oh, I don't know, the fact that it's incredibly illegal to profit off the sale of corpses and body parts? That's right, I still got the props here. It was a cadaver crime. Now, UCLA's willed body donation program was the first of its kind in the United States. It was a really big deal. Starting in 1950, people were able to will their bodies to the medical school so that future doctors could learn from their corpse. Not only does a program like this give medical students an invaluable education, but it also gives donors the chance to give back to their community when they die. When the scandal broke around UCLA and everyone learned what Nelson and Reed had been doing, families had to come to terms with what had actually been happening over at UCLA. Helen Yoshikawa said this about her mother and stepfather, who were both body donors. Quote, "They didn't have good lives. There were lots of obstacles and disappointments. They saw this as a way to do something good, to be more in death than they were in life." Instead, Yoshikawa continued, her mother and stepfather were, quote, "chopped into ice chest-sized pieces and illegally sold to the highest bidder." I'm sure you're asking, how could this happen at one of the nation's most prestigious medical schools? And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure. From what I can tell, it's a story of corruption, greed, and the belief that it's possible to circumvent the system put in place to protect the dead. This is what we know. In 1997, former embalmer Henry Reed became the program director of the willed body donation program. In 1999, he hooked up with Ernest Nelson, an independent businessman not employed by UCLA, in this scheme to sell body parts to major corporations like Johnson & Johnson. And the way it worked was that Reed essentially supplied Nelson with the corpses of people who had donated their bodies to the medical school, giving him access to body parts and organs without having to fill out any paperwork or pay any fees to UCLA. Hey, free bodies. Allegedly, the only person who knew what was really happening was Reed. Like I said, Nelson would just go into the program's refrigeration chamber and start chopping up the bodies, taking whatever parts he needed. Nelson claimed he had nothing to hide, and that he had no idea UCLA didn't know what he was doing. In fact, he insisted UCLA was in on it. And when questioned as to how he explained profiting off the sale of body parts, which is illegal, Nelson simply said he was charging for labor, storage, and handling of the parts. When he paid Reed after the sale, he figured he was paying UCLA. Or so he says. Surprise, surprise, it turns out Reed was pocketing the money. UCLA claims they had no knowledge of Reed and Nelson's activities. And Reed and Nelson's shenanigans were discovered in 2003 when a state health inspector noticed what looked like a falsified infectious disease blood tests from one of Nelson's body part shipments. The inspector went to Reed, who then asked Nelson to return all the body parts to UCLA. And so Nelson showed up at UCLA with several bags of body parts and demanded to be reimbursed for $241,000. Even worse, once the investigation got going, several corpses were found to be missing entirely and could not be found. Families sued over the loss of their loved ones' corpses, and to this day, not all of them have been located. Both Reed and Nelson were convicted and sentenced to prison in 2009. Nelson was sentenced to 10 years, Reed to 4. And the willed body donation program was temporarily suspended following the investigation and the lawsuit. Needless to say, Reed and Nelson's actions cast suspicion on the UCLA program and brought to light just how disorganized and poorly run the donation program was. At the time of the investigation, it was revealed that the cadaver storage was overcrowded, dirty, and hundreds of corpses couldn't be accounted for. But there is a silver lining to this story. Under new leadership, UCLA's body donation program now has an extremely detailed tracking and cataloging system for the corpses, and respect and transparency is of the utmost importance. Even more exciting is that in 2015, the Donated Body Program was the first program to permanently operate an alkaline hydrolysis unit in the state of California. That means instead of being cremated, the bodies are aquamated after they've been worked on by the students. And the new head of their department made it a priority to accomplish this goal, and he's now a friend and a wonderful advocate for alkaline hydrolysis. And no, this doesn't make up for what happened with Reed and Nelson, but at least these changes show a major commitment to the community, both living and dead. I think what this series has taught us is that funeral homes and medical schools can develop a bad reputation, but if they have radical transparency, it's possible to earn that trust back. This seems like a good place to end. Thank you, patrons, for being a part of this journey. I hope you enjoyed this bonus video, and as always, thank you for being a patron. Travel down the road and back again. Didn't quite work. All right, see you next time. We're working on a big long one for August. I shouldn't say the phrase a big long one. That's weird. Anyway, see you then. This video was made with generous donations from death enthusiasts just like you. I was gonna light the candle, but I almost set the orchid on fire last time, so we're just gonna sit here with no candle. I hope you enjoyed this bonus video, just you and I hope you enjoyed this. I've zoned out again.